Welcome back to another video, and this is Telford History by Bike. Now the next route we're going to take is from Southwater, which is at the town centre, to Stirchley, and as you can see we're off now, and we've got this beautiful man-made ornate pool to the right of us, and we will shortly just turn left now and then right onto Dark Lane. Now Dark Lane was an original road that used to run from Hinksay to Prasley to the village of Dark Lane, which is where Hollinswood is currently built. On the left hand side there you can see the Sky Reach. So this little bit of lane here is originally what I would have thought Dark Lane would have looked like. You can imagine all of the big trees growing over the big hedges at the side here, and this would have been quite a quaint lane to sort of drive down. So we're heading just down here. Lots of open space here as well to the left hand side, but to the right we have Withy Pool as well, which is just up on the embankment there, which is a kind of reservoir to feed the canal. So we're just coming up to the top of the road now, so if you turn right that takes us up towards Mallinsley and Spout Mound. On the left you can see the Dark Lane car park. The car park on the left is actually only recently been renamed back to Dark Lane. Bit of a celebration, I suppose, of the name. A couple of years ago there was a lot of interest back in Dark Lane. So as we carry on now, we've got the rugby club to the right, and we also have a storage depot here to the left, which is more than likely where the new exotic zoo is going to go. So we're going to turn left now off the lane, and this is a little track that runs down to the bottom of the old railway line, and to the left you can see this drainage channel here. So this drain is part of what we call the grotto, which is owned by Severn Trent, and this basically takes excess rainwater from Mallinsley, but also groundwater that's built up from Spout Mound and around that area, and sort of funnels it into Randley Pool. It's a really nice track, although years ago the track used to be on the other side. It shows how much it's changed. So it's actually been man-made, this little section here, out of just infilled rubble. However, on a previous video I was talking to you about Mallinsley Chapel. Now I believe the stone for Mallinsley Chapel came from here. Now you can actually see this waterfall here. Now this descends down into the lower area, and it was meant to be quite a feature in the Telford Town Park for Telford Development Corporation, and as I say, on maps it's called the Grotto. Unfortunately it never really was what it was meant to be, and actually it's quite a dangerous area because there's some quite big slopes down there, but the water carries on down. Now on a sort of particularly bad flood day, it's actually like a raging torrent down there. It really is very, very dangerous, and there's a culvert at the bottom, as you'll see, and a staged waterfall, and then it disappears into a couple of steel tubes underneath into Randley Pool. So in terms of the Telford drainage system, this handles quite a lot of the water that comes from the Mallinsley area. What I find quite interesting about this slope is once there was a flood that literally took a load of this ground away and exposed a load of gravestones smashed up, and I've no idea where they come from, but I was told as a bit of a rumour that they said it had actually come from Mallinsley Church, all the old gravestones. They've just seen the culvert there. So that disappears underneath here. So where I'm coming down now is actually made up of old gravestones, and I have actually seen those myself. So what we've got now coming up is this pathway. This is the pathway that leaves the Silken Way a bit further down and goes to the Holiday Inn or to the amphitheatre. A bit of a funny story to this. Now this is the actual original Coalport line, but also on the left hand side was the route of the existing canal, and if you look carefully you'll be able to see a depression in the ground to the left where you'll see there's water still in it, due to the clay lining that's holding the you can see it there, look, the clay lining that's used for the canal. Now we're going along now. Obviously, I've told you this is the Coalport line. Around about 1979, TDC actually relayed a track along here for a sort of steam tram, and it was opened in April 1980 by Telford Development Corporation, and it ran all the way around it was more of a feature around Randeley Lake. Right to the left now was where the shed was. You can see the ground drops away now, and that's Dinosaur Valley, which is in Wonderland. Well, that's actually in the bottom of the canal. The valley is actually the original bed of the canal. On the right hand side you can see Randeley Pool. But back to this tram. This tram, the whole idea didn't really work, and it was later scrapped, but it actually ended up at the Telford Steam Trust in Horsey, and it's still running today. And the tram was called Thomas. A lot of people thought it was after Thomas the Tank Engine, but actually it was after Thomas Telford. So here we are, which should really be a jewel in the crown. This is the Telford Amphitheatre. Now during the 70s and 80s this was quite a popular area for bands and stuff like that, but completely abandoned now. I think it really needs some work putting into it, this does, and I think it could be really, really good. I mean, the stage is apparently all rotten. Such a shame, but a really, really nice place to come and sit down and take in Randeley Pool. So the Coalport Railway runs straight on now. Next station will be Mallingsley. If you go left now, that will take you back into the Telford Town Park, the play area, but we're going right. Now, straight ahead, up the slope, that will take you to Hollinswood. So we are actually going around the edge of Randeley Pool. So we're coming into what we call the Brickworks area. This is the site that it was on. The Brickworks was started in around about 1838, and it's been owned by various different companies, George Wilkinson, the Botfields, etc. And this was the area where roughly it was located. It was said that the brickworks could produce up to 300,000 bricks per week. That is something else. So this here is a educational area. It's now used for pretty much smoking cannabis, etc. It's a bit of a hot spot for that. And it's right next to the Randeley Pool. So we're going to go down this slope now, and that will bring us on to the edge of Randeley Pool. Now this track isn't for the faint-hearted or if you're a mountain biker, you might have to get off a few times because it is pretty rough going and lots of ruts and roots, etc. A little feeder here, an old feeder into the Randeley Pool. So let's tell you a little bit about Randeley Pool. Randeley Pool is a reservoir. Now it was used for primarily releasing water from the canal for repairs into it, but also it's pumped back up into the canal, so it was a feeder. On the left hand side here you can see this embankment. Now the unique thing about Randeley Pool is that it's a reservoir owned by Severn Trent. Without a doubt, Randeley Pool is one of the most important lakes in Telford. This lake can handle a once in a lifetime flood. It's managed by a clever siphon which has been built into a castle type structure at the bottom end of the pool. The lake is fed by a few different tributaries. One is the excess water from the motorway. Two is water from Mallingsley. During extreme flood conditions, a lot of the water is managed in such a way that it's taken by a network of pipes down to Hohem I. But also there is a floodplain known as Fletcher's Pool to deal with any excess water that is created all of this happens complete and utterly hidden underground. During the 80s, essential maintenance was required on the dam at Hohem I. This meant that both reservoirs needed to be emptied, so the first job was to empty Randley Pool into Hohem I. Then Hohem I emptied into the River Severn and to the floodplain. It was surprising what was buried in the deep mud once the water had disappeared. The repairs were made and then the lake restored to its former glory. Lifetime flood, you need some pretty big pipes to deal with, and this pool is no exception. Some of the pipes that lead out of Randley Pool are over 9 foot in diameter, absolutely massive to cater for that once in a lifetime flood. You can start to see the castle coming into view. This is a great vantage point for anybody who likes bird watching or just looking over the lake of a summer evening. You can now see the bridge over to the top of the castle. We're going to carry on, and we've got a small selection of steps to deal with first, because we're going to carry on around the pool to look at one of the best views of the pool. I did say it was a little bit up and down this track, but it's worth it. This is the beautiful view of Randley Pool. You can actually see right up the pool there, and you can see actually further up how it narrows. But we're going to go up this bit of a hill here. I don't recommend you ride up. Might break your chain on this one, but once we get to the top, we're going to take a sharp left. You really can see the height difference between how high we are now and the pool that is below. And just think of the capacity if the water, we ever did have a once in a lifetime flood, that we could actually hold that much water. It's very, very clever from them early TDC engineers. So this is the top woodland path now. Now this will bring us on to one of the main paths. I kind of like up here because you're kind of in the woodland on this beautiful woodland track, and then all of a sudden you just bam out into the open. But once we've come just down here, we're going to take a right. Left turning takes us back to Randley Pool, the blue pool, and this takes us back to sort of Dark Lane. Oh, it's very busy here, isn't it? This sort of takes us, if you carry on round, there's a sort of seating area, but we're going to go off left on this sort of grass track here. Now, I'm just not surprised why they've not actually put this as a solid footpath. Just up the path there, as you can see, there is a little viewpoint there, and some great work by, I think it's the Abraham Darby School, commemorating Thomas Telford. But we're going to take a left turn in now, and this brings us right down the side of Stirchley Chimney. You can just see Stirchley Chimney to the left hand side. Well, what do we know about Stirchley Chimney? Well, we know the site was the site of a blast furnace as early as 1827. And the company it was built by was the Wellington and Coal Company. They shortly went bust, and then it became the property of the Wrekin Chemical Works. And over the years, they exploited the area for various different minerals. But later on, it was owned by tar slag, which this was a perfect site in every way because the area was covered in lots of different slag heaps from the previous blast furnaces, and a lot of that was crushed up and sold elsewhere. To the left hand side, you can see the area is very steeply sloped. Now this is the other floodplain area around Fletcher Pool. It's been designed in such a way, similar to Randy Pool, like a bowl to hold that once in a lifetime flood, and then that is filtered out into Grange Pool. Now we're travelling along one of the original roads into the Wrekin Chemical Works. This would have started at the Rose and Crown and travelled along Northwood Terrace, or better known as Tarts Row. Anyway, we are now coming up to this beautiful hedge here. You can just see the original hedge line here from the original access road. So we've got a bit of a junction now. So straight over takes you towards Northwood Terrace and onto Stirchley Village, and right takes you to the Silken Way, where we're actually going to hang a left, but the immediate left takes you down to Fletcher's Pool. A little hidden gem that is, but a very important job to do. It's worth noting a lot of the land in the area was owned by the Botfield family and Isaac Hawkins Brown. On the right hand side you can see Grange Pit Mound for Grange Colliery. Grange Colliery opened in 1840 and closed in 1893. It was also the home to a pit disaster. On the 13th of December 1862, 2 men lost their lives to an explosion in the pit. You can see this is a great place to bring your mountain bike. Some great trails through this small pit mound. You can see it's a bit up and down, but great for mountain bikes and a great place to come and lose a bit of energy. Well, I'm afraid that's it for our short ride. We end the ride at Stirchley Grange, another one of the entrances into the Telford Town Park. I hope you've enjoyed it. Join us again for another ride. And thank you for watching Telford History by Bike.